Hello and welcome to the DaveCast on this Tuesday, September 15th. We are on part 32 of a study in the book of Exodus that we started back on May 19th. And so it has been a long journey. But yesterday I was outlining what I wanted to cover this week. And I do believe we're going to finish Exodus this week. We are getting down to the end as we find ourselves in Exodus chapter 35 with just 5 chapters to go. So there is a good bit to cover, but I think we can make it. So just quickly, what happened in chapter 34? After the whole golden calf fiasco, Moses has had to intercede on behalf of the Israelites because at first God was so angry and frustrated with them that he was going to annihilate them and start over with just Moses. And then he was going to let them go on to Canaan land, but without his presence. He said he wasn't going with them because he said he was afraid he'd get mad and would end up killing them all. And so Moses intercedes and reconciles everything. And then there is this great scene where Moses asks God to show him God's glory. And Moses goes and stands in the cleft of the rock, and God passes by, and Moses sees the back of God. And so this isn't exactly our New Testament image of God, right? On a bunch of different levels. And even though I am no expert, we did try to work through some of the theology that we find here and that continues throughout much of the Old Testament. And so if you missed those episodes, I'd encourage you to go back and find them and watch those episodes as they're available in the archive sections, both on Facebook and on YouTube, whatever you may be watching this on. All right, so Moses comes back down from the mountain, another set of tablets, the 10 Commandments again, and that is where we pick up today in chapter 35. And this is where Moses is going to tell them that it is time for them to build the tabernacle, that what is needed is a suitable home for God's glory. And so I'll start reading at verse 4. Moses said to the whole Israelites community, "This is what the Lord has commanded. From what you have, take an offering for the Lord. Everyone who is willing is to bring to the Lord an offering of gold, silver, and bronze, and blue, and purple, and scarlet yarn, and fine linen, goat hair, ram skins dyed red, and another type of durable leather, acacia woods, olive oil for the light, spices for the anointing oil and the fragrant incense, and onyx stones and other gems to be mounted on the ephod and breastplate." And so I'm going to stop there because it continues on with great detail of all the things that they're going to need to build the tabernacle, and it is a long list. Moses' request, did you notice? It's very simple. Let whoever is of a generous heart bring the Lord's offering. Or another translation says, everyone who is willing is to bring to the Lord an offering. And so notice Moses' fundraising technique. I mean, there is no guilt trip here. There's no 4 weeks of teaching on tithing. There's no slick stewardship campaign for a building fund. Just a simple appeal to those who wanted to respond. And respond they did. Everyone whose heart was stirred, everyone whose spirit was willing, they brought gold and silver and bronze and yarns of blue and purple and crimson and fine linen and precious stones and fragrant spices and oil for the light, which is another way of saying they paid for the electric bill. And this all is very significant because remember, this was a group of people that previously had been operating from a viewpoint of scarcity. Because even though God had delivered them out of slavery in Egypt with all those miracles and provided all these things, every time there was a bump in the road, they freaked out and got anxious. There's no water. God gives them water. There's no food. God sends manna. How are they going to get there? God sends a pillar of clouds by day and a pillar of fire by night. And then God gives them the original 10 Commandments in full view from Mount Sinai and establishes that they are his covenant people. And still, they were so anxious and full of fear that when Moses is gone for 40 days getting the further instructions on the law and all the plans for the tabernacle, they freak out again. They get anxious. They build the golden calf and start worshiping it. And now, this is different. They have moved out of fearing with scarcity into believing with abundance. And in that movement, they participate in an extraordinary outpouring of generosity. Walter Brueggemann says that this is a moment of new beginning for Israel, as fresh and new as new creation. Brueggemann says, in that moment, nothing impedes generosity, nothing qualifies extravagance. The only compelling motivation for generous stewardship is an awareness that life is pure gift and that gratitude is the only fitting posture for life. Love that quote. In gratitude, they stepped out of their fear of the unknown. They left behind their worry about not having enough. They remembered God's goodness over the long haul, and they brought their offerings, gift of their precious and most beautiful things, to Moses. And so the rest of chapter 35 and into chapter 36 a little bit, we hear the details of this because they kept on bringing. And those with skills and craftsmanship, they gave of their time. And the gifts just kept coming and coming and coming and coming until, watch this, picking up with chapter 35, verse 3. The people continued to bring free will offerings morning after morning. So all the skilled workers who were doing all the work on the sanctuary left what they were doing and said to Moses, "The people are bringing more than enough for doing the work of the Lord, the work the Lord commanded to be done." Then Moses gave an order, and they sent this word throughout the camp: "No man or woman is to make anything else as an offering for the sanctuary." And so the people were restrained from bringing more because what they already had was more than enough to do all the work. Did you hear the last part of that story? They kept bringing free will offerings until someone, I think it was the trustees, told Moses they had to stop. They said, "The people are bringing much more than enough. We already have much more than enough to do all the work." Can you imagine? What if this Sunday afternoon after the offerings counted, that Amy Watts came to me and said, "Dave, we don't need any more money for the rest of the year. We have enough to pay all our bills and pay off all the mortgage and pay for even buying new stained glass windows if we want." And then what if I were to come to you and say, "You've got to stop giving like this, Conyers First, because what you've given is more than enough." I mean, that's crazy, right? But that's what happens when we move from fear and scarcity to faith and abundance. Understanding that in God there is more than enough if we would but open our hearts to that kind of generosity, that God always supplies more than enough. Now, it took the Israelites a long time to get to this point. And central to them getting here was becoming a community, a nation whose God was the Lord. And even so, spoiler alert, they will backslide again and again after the Exodus story is finished and throughout the Old Testament. But even then, God will provide. As for us, for you and me, it'll take most of us a long time too. And we may need to move between scarcity and abundance a few times before we can hopefully leave scarcity behind for good. What we need is the courage to move out from behind our fear and to have courage to move to faith and generosity. I think this all sums up the longing for a faith that is authentic, that is found in community, that lends us courage when we are afraid and helps us to believe when we doubt. It is a yearning that so many people out there are feeling. It's what they want. It's what we want. It's the gospel's alternative to this culture of enmity and fear that is so at work in the world. It is what can happen when we determine to be faithful and courageous and loving and to accept God's love ourselves and let it flow through us to those who are desperate for it. And so I think that is a good place for us to stop today. On Thursday, we're going to finish Exodus. And so until then, be safe and y'all keep bringing the hope. Bye-bye now.